Hey guys, I'm Mark, and today is strawberry and onion planting day. It's been a crazy weekend here at the nursery, and I'm glad I can finally get up into the garden and do something up here. So I'll explain a little bit about what I've got here. We'll start with why don't we start with the strawberries? I'm going to be planting 4 different kinds of strawberries. This whole bed is only going to get one variety of strawberry. And then I've got a bed behind here that I've already planted last night that's got another type of strawberry, and then I've got 2 more like it, one variety in each. I feel like if I plant multiple varieties in the same bed, they're just gonna wind up climbing all together, and I'll never be able to get them apart and tell the difference after a certain point. So each bed's gonna get its own variety. Last night I planted Early Glow. That's a really old standard variety. One of the people that actually lives here at this farm used to have a pick your own strawberry business, and that was one of the more popular varieties that they grew back then. So these particular strawberries come from Indiana Berry and Plant Company. I've dealt with them a few times before, and I've always been really happy with their stuff. They sent me this box here, and inside I've got 4 bundles of bare root strawberry plants. I think in this bed we'll do Honey-O. The 4 varieties they sent me, it's called their all-season mix. Basically, they're all June bearing types that come in successively one after the other in terms of harvest. So I've got an early one, a mid-early, a semi-late, and then a late variety, so that I've got a longer harvest time. The 4 varieties they sent me are Early Glow, Honey-O, Jewel, and AC Valley. They even sent me this little catalog. It's got all their other varieties in it and some really detailed planting instructions and some other really cool plants that they sell. But anyway, the plants look really healthy. They've been in, even though they've been in my refrigerator now for like over 3 weeks, they still look really, really good. So I'm going to open one up and show you. You can buy your strawberry plants in pots if you wanted to, but personally I prefer to buy them this way. And you can see it's just a big bundle of sandy, bare root strawberries. Now, I'm planting strawberries in this bed alongside with onions because, well, number one, strawberries and onions both like a lot of the same growing conditions. They both like to be out in the full sun, and they both like to have really loose, friable soil that breaks apart very easily. You can see my soil here. What's in it so far is 1 part cow manure to 2 parts native topsoil, just basically dirt. There's nothing really too special about it. And then I just added one more part of mushroom soil this year and tilled that in. So it's got a good nitrogen value in there, a lot of good organic matter and humus, and both the strawberries and the onions should like that soil quite a bit. The other reason for growing strawberries and onions together is they are what's called companion plants, meaning that when planted together, these 2 species will do better off by virtue of having the other species in the picture than if we were just growing one species by itself. For example, in this situation, onions deter a lot of pests. A lot of things don't like the smell of onions, even insects and a lot of mammals too. So it keeps a lot of things from nibbling on the strawberry leaves and on the fruits themselves when they get to fruiting. These 4 varieties of strawberries are all June-bearing strawberries. They all come in more of a heavy picking all at once, as adverse to something like an ever-bearing type of strawberry, which you're going to get multiple successive pickings off the same plant throughout the season. So this is going to be the first year. Hey Kira. This is going to be the first year for these strawberries, so I'm going to space these out. Eventually, these plants, I'm going to want them to be 6 inches apart. I'll do a video about how I do that later on by virtue of pinning down the runners. But for right now, there's going to be a lot of empty space in here between the strawberries, the onions, so I think I'm also going to throw in some lettuce that I got down at the greenhouse. We got some lettuce and some market packs. It's going to be kind of big, so I figured why not throw that in there too. The onions will probably, hopefully, keep the rabbits and things away from that because I don't have my gates built yet. Yeah, Kira's not feeling too well. Anyway, so this one is Honey-O. I'm going to plant the Honey-O strawberries 18 inches apart. I'm going to plant 2 rows of these. I've got 25 plants in this bundle, so I'm going to do 2 rows of 12 and then I'll sneak the extra one in somewhere. My first row is going to be 2 feet in, and then the second row is going to be the same thing, mirror image on the other side. And then every 12 inches here, I'm going to have onions planted. And the onions are going to go about 4 inches apart, 3 to 4 inches apart. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out my strings. You can see that I've got some pins in the ground here. You could use sticks, but I'm using staples. I've already laid them out and measured them out for where they go. But I always like to use a string and pins and measure things out. Keeps things nice and straight, at least straighter than if I was just going to eyeball them. This is just a regular, they call it dry line. It's just nylon string. It's really good for laying out things that you're going to build, or laying out lines in the garden, because it stretches a little bit. So when you pull it straight, it stays straight. So basically, I'm just going to weave this string back and forth. So that first line there is going to be onions. And the second line here is going to be strawberries. Depending upon how many onions I have left at the end of this, I might intermix some onions in with the strawberry line also, but we'll see. I don't want to run out, so. Now back to another onion line. Oops. You can see that using a string just takes a whole lot of the guesswork out of things. Cannot wait to have strawberries. These strawberry plants, I'm not going to have them produce this first year. In fact, I'm going to encourage more runners to grow by picking off all the flowers and the little buds intentionally. And that's going to, like I said, it's going to encourage more runners to shoot off, which I'll pin down. And basically, I'm going to create 2 thick rows of strawberries that by next year I'm going to get my very first harvest out of. I'd rather get a really nice harvest out of my second year than pick a handful of strawberries this first year. Okay. So that's the last row there. The staples are nice because you can push them all the way down into the soil and it makes the string nice and taut. Like if I had a stick, if I was using sticks or something like that instead, then I'd have to kind of wrap the string around the stick. This just makes it really nice and quick. I can just shove the staple straight down and it really sort of stays there. Okay, so there's all my strings. I guess we'll start laying out strawberries first. Okay. So where did my bundle go? I already opened it up. There it is. All right, so like I say, these are the Honey-O varieties. We'll get to planting a few of these and talking about that, and then I'll discuss the onions. But for right now, this is just a bucket of water that I got my onions sitting in. I'll tell you why that is in a second. But I'm gonna just give these strawberry plants a nice good dip, just because I just took them out of the plastic bag. It is cloudy outside. The sun's not blaring down on us, so it's not imperative today that I do that, but it's just good practice. Just kind of keep the roots nice and moist while you're working with them. The person that lives on this farm, they used to do a pick your own. When they used to set strawberry plants out, they used to dip them in mud for the same reason, just to keep the roots sort of moist and protected while they were out in the field planting. Oh yeah, I want to start in the center. Like I said, I'm going to lay these plants out at 18 inches apart. So I already went ahead and I found my center point at 10 feet in the middle of this bed, and I made myself a stick. There it is. I always like to cut myself a stick and use that instead of a tape measure whenever I can. It just kind of saves my tape measure's life a little bit. Tape measure gets pretty dirty pretty quickly, and then it gets all gummed up, and it's just nicer to use sticks as much as you can when you're in the garden. And so I'm going to go 9 inches left and 9 inches right of my center marking here. That was 9 inches. Obviously it doesn't have to be exact. These things are going to sprawl all over the place anyway, but I like to get them pretty close. Just looks neat for a while. As far as depth goes, I'm basically just trying to plant it right up, just about right to the crown. I'm not burying this a whole lot. I'm just planting it just like you'd plant just about anything else. Kiri's eating grass. And I'd say within about a week, these plants ought to start sending out, well, you can see they're already sending out leaves, but they're really pale because they haven't been exposed to sunlight yet. They've only been sitting in this box inside of my refrigerator, but they should green up within a day or two, really. And I think they're going to take off pretty quick. These look like some really good bare root plants. Yeah, that is a nice thing about bare root plants, is that if your schedule's tight, you can just stick them in the fridge in most cases and they'll be just fine until you can get around to planting them. You don't have to worry about watering them or them getting too big in the pot. Just gives you a little bit more shelf life. Nice and convenient. Poor Kira. I just tilled this soil in. I added, like I said, I added a whole yard of mushroom soil into the mix here in the past couple days, and I just tilled it in this morning. And that makes the soil just nice and friable and easy to work with, and which is not so much a big deal with the strawberry plants, but when it comes to planting the onions, that's going to make things really nice. I wanted to make sure that I got the soil right, because, or at least as good as I could, because these strawberries are going to sit in here for the next, I guess, handful of years, and can't really do a whole lot with the soil once you've got a perennial crop planted in there. And I can add things always too. I mean, every year that's going to get a covering of straw at certain parts of the year, and I can always add amendments like calcium and things if I need to. And also sand. as I mentioned before, you can see how sandy the roots were on these bare root strawberries. That's the environment. You can imagine the type of soil that they were grown in. So here in Maryland, or at least where we're located, where this farm is located, our soil is not very sandy. It's a lot more of a clay consistency. But we do have a creek right down there that last year the river jumped the bank and it deposited this really big pile of sand. Deposited this really big pile of sand, which I think I'm going to go down and fill up a few wheelbarrows full and throw on top of these strawberries or a few other things in the garden. So if I don't take advantage of it, the next time the river jumps the bank, it's probably just going to wash all that sand right back away again. And that sand probably has a lot of minerals and micronutrients and things in there that will probably benefit this garden, in addition to the fact that it just, you know, adds that friability, that nice texture to the soil. So I think I'm going to do that. And that's something that I can just, you know, sand I can just like pitchfork out, or you can't pitchfork sand, but I'll toss sand out over this bed and that'll filter its way down and I think work out just fine. Well, I think they gave me some extra, no. Let's see, I missed some. I started at the midway point. I was going to say, that's a lot of extras. Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, 23. Let me see. I think there might be 23. Oh, there we go. 24. Okay. All right. So there's the strawberries. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you the onions and how I do that. Okay. This is a flat of onions. Now these are called candy onions. It's a large white yellow onion variety that grows really well in this area. When you're choosing onion seeds, you always have to pay attention to what latitude you are and what your day length is, because onions they grow differently depending upon you know, you have long day varieties, short day varieties. You have the intermediate day varieties. You got to figure out what you are, what your longitude is, and then, or what your latitude is, excuse me, and then go from there. I prefer to use onion plants that I start from seed, as averse to onion sets. Like you could buy onion sets, they look like little pearl onions. You can get them at a lot of garden centers. I find that the onion plants seem to do a little bit better for me. I think you get a larger onion, and I think the onions store better when you do it this way. This particular flat was sown on February 22nd, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah, February 22nd. So today is May the 3rd. And basically these onions now, they're about the size of anywhere from a matchstick in width to like a number 2 pencil. And that's usually what I like to see. If you're wondering what the bucket of water is for, I told you about that earlier. I just like to take these plugs out. This is a 30 flat. There's 30 plugs here. When I take these out, I just like to sit them in a bucket of water or something. It gets them nice and wet, and I feel like they are able to pull apart a little bit easier when you do that. Plus, maybe it gets the onion a little bit more hydrated if you leave them in there long enough before you're about to go into transplant. But basically, I just pick them apart like this. I get my hand all loaded up with onion plants. And then I like to trim them. You don't have to trim them, but I like to, just for sake of, I think it makes things a little more tidy to work with. It's less to trip on. You know, you get your shoe or something, or your toe caught on one of the onions while you're doing it, and you can pull it out of the ground easy. Some people say that trimming the onions makes them stronger or encourages them to grow faster. I'm not too sure I don't know if I agree with that or not, but I think you could do it either way. Yeah, we'll take these two. All right, well, anyway, to get started, I got my little handful of onions there. And basically, I'll start this direction so I can face you. I basically just take my fingers just like this. I don't make holes or anything because the soil is already nice and broken up. It's really friable, so it allows me to just stick these onions straight in like that. I'm just basically getting them as deep as I can, which isn't that deep, maybe 2 or 3 inches. And about 3 inches apart. I'd say maybe 4 fingers, like that wide, maybe just shy of that. And I'll thin them out as they get bigger. I mean, we'll use onions in salads and things. So that'll give some more spacing as the season progresses, just by doing that. So nothing fancy here. I'm just plunging them right in. Not too worried about tamping the soil in around them or anything like that. I think the rain or the hose will take care of that. That'll wash in the soil around the plants just fine. And let's see, I've got 5 rows here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so 5 rows of onions and then 2 rows of strawberries. And like I say, if I have enough of these onion plants, I'll go ahead and I'll just to show you, I'll just interplant right between the strawberries as well. I mean, why not? They'll be just fine. So basically with this style of planting, what's going to happen is the onions are going to benefit because the strawberries are going to spread out and they're going to shade the ground. And they're going to make the ground nice and cool, which the onions like a lot. And the onions are going to keep the pests and the predators away from the strawberry plants. So it's going to be a nice little happy relationship here. Eventually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this bed with straw. At first, I just want to let these onions kind of take root and establish themselves a little bit first before I go covering the whole thing with straw in case I have to replace any or anything like that. Plus, if I wait a little while, this time of year, there's a lot of seeds, weed seeds that like to germinate, that are just about to germinate. And since I just tilled, it's almost like I'm letting everything out of the starting gate. So there's going to be a lot of little teeny tiny weeds that are going to start popping up here in the next several days. So what I'm going to do, what I find is a neat little trick, is I just allow that to happen. Then I'll go ahead and I'll take a hoe and I'll just hoe over all those little teeny tiny weeds that appear. And then I'll put my straw on top of that. So in the end, you wind up having a little bit less weeds that way. So that's what I'm going to do here. I think I covered about everything about how I'm trying to do it. It's going to be probably a few weeks before we really start to see these strawberries expanding out. You can see the bed behind me I already have done. You can see that's how it's going to wind up looking like once I remove the strings and plant all this. It took me about half an hour last night to plant that with onions and with strawberries and to be all said and done. Oh yeah, and I think I said I'm going to sneak a couple lettuce plants in there too, because why not? I got all this space. The lettuce will give me a good few rounds of a harvest before all this starts to get too big that it starts choking this out. And it'll be pretty hot by then too. So that's my plan. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.